students, today's agenda is to check homework. We'll be learning about the domain and range, and you will be able to do 6.3. Today, students will be able to list the domain and the range of a function. But what is the domain and range? The domain is all the possible x values, and the range is all the possible y values. Okay, for the first scenario, it says you owe $500. You are paying $200 per month. You started 3 months ago with your debt. You will continue until the 5th month after today. So if you owe 500, that means right now in the present or month 0, you owe $500. You're paying $200 per month. That means after 1 month, you will pay 200 after month 1. 2 more hundred after another month, 200 after another one, 200 after on the 4th month, and 200 on the 5th month. But then it says that you started 3 months ago with that debt. That means that you're going to go, you owed 200 the month before, 200 more the month before that, and 200 more the month before that one. Okay, so when it says you owe 500, it means right now. In the past, you had the debt, and in the future, you're paying off the debt. We connect those points. And so as it says, the domain is the possible values on x for that graph. So what I recommend is that you start putting 2 lines, and you can draw them or you can put 2 sticks, and then see where that graph starts and ends on x. You're aligning them so that it goes to the value on the x-axis. So in this case, the domain will be from -3 to +5. Okay, so because this includes that month, the 3rd month in the past, right? -3 means 3 months before. And so you're going to include a bracket for the notation, okay? If it includes, you would put a bracket and then -3, comma, and then we said that for the last one, it was 5. It's including the 5, so we put brackets again. For the range, what we're going to do is that we're going to do the same thing but horizontally. And again, you can draw them or you can just point, oh, this is right there. So it's 500. In here, it was 800, 1,000. So that means 1,100. Okay, so in here is -1,100. Since those values are included, okay, again, you can draw the lines if you wish. That way it's easier for you. So if you draw them all the way to the y-axis, that's going to be helpful. Again, what's the lowest number? You are going to put this first. It's including that number, -1,100. And then the highest is 500. And because it's included, we put brackets. Okay, so that's the domain and the range. For number 2, we are going to go into Desmos.com. But remember that you can always use your graphing calculators. And we're going to insert y equals, but you can just start typing this part right here. So x squared, remember x, and then a to the 2nd power makes it a parabola, plus x, so plus x, and then -6, -6. And so those are the values. You can actually press on those grayish dots or points, and those are going to guide you to know where to graph in here. Okay, so it's -0.5, -6.25. So -0.5 is half of it, and then -6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 0.25. So around there, that's the vertex. Then you have 0, -6. 0, -6 is right there. Then you have +2. +2 is right there. And then you have -3. -3 is right there. And those are just to guide your graphing, okay? The graph, to be able to transfer it into your assignment. Okay, and something that I want you to see is that if you go up, it will continue to go on and on and on. And notice how it opens also on X, to the point where you're not going to be able to see them unless you zoom in. See? But it keeps growing both on Y and on X. Okay? So having that in mind, what is the domain? Do we have a place where they stop? No, because it keeps growing and growing and growing and growing on X. So it's going to go infinitely on both sides. When you put infinite, you're always going to start with a parenthesis. Why? Because there is not a point where you stop, where you include that point. Okay? So you say that the domain is from the negative infinite to the positive infinite. And again, it's a parenthesis, not a bracket. Now for Y, we know that it starts here, but in here, again, it kept growing and growing and growing infinitely. So the lowest point is going to be brackets, because it includes that point, and it's going to be -6 point. It's that point right there. So it's for Y, -6.25. Okay, so -6.25. But then again, remember, it kept going up on Y, so it's going to be positive infinite. Okay, and in here we're going to put a parenthesis again. Why? Because there is not a specific point where it stops, so it's infinite. Okay, so for number 1, it was a scenario. For number 2, they gave us a function. For number 3, they're giving us a graph. And in the graph, again, what we're going to do is look at the endpoints compared to X. Again, you can always draw them. So just going to X. So the highest point is 5. The lowest point is -3. And so we always put this one first. Now, if you notice, it's a closed circle. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to draw a bracket, which means that it includes that point. Okay, and so it will be -3. And then for this one, we notice that it's an open circle, so it does not include that. So we're going to put the 5, but because 5 is not included, we put parentheses. So the notation for the domain is -3, +5, but then with brackets at the beginning, which means it includes the -3, but with parentheses at the end because it does not include the 5. Now for the range, again, you can do 2 sticks, or you can just draw towards the y-axis. And then here. And so the lowest is -5, but it's not included again, okay, because it's this open circle. So for the range, we're going to put open parentheses. It's -5. And then it ends on 7. But that 7 is included because it's a closed circle. So we put a bracket in there. So for the range is between -5 and 7, but it does not include the -5, okay? For number 4, we have something going on in here. So we have a function, it says f of x equals 5 times 3 to the x divided by 20. And by looking in here, it says that there is bacteria in minutes. That means that by looking at this, the cycle is every 20 minutes. So if we were doing this from a scenario, it would seem something like, oh, there is 5 bacteria right now or in the present, and then it triples, the bacteria triples every 20 minutes. So if we were just doing it from the center, it would look like this. So you start with 5. After 20 minutes, the bacteria triples. So now you don't have 5 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. And then another 20 minutes go by. 15 times 3 is 45. And it will continue on and on and on. So that's the beginning of that. Okay. So if it continues, if you notice, the growth on X, it keeps going and going and going. It slows down, but it's still going and going and going. So that means that for the domain, it will continue into infinite. So if we don't use technology and we just go with what we know from scenarios, the beginning for the domain will be 0 for X, but then if you notice, it will continue to grow towards infinite. And so it includes the 0. Careful, don't get confused with 5. It's just, remember, in here we don't draw a line because it continues on and on and on. So it just has a beginning but not an end. So we put 0, including the 0, and then positive infinite. And so that's with a parenthesis. For the range, on Y, the first point is right on 5. And again, it continues to grow. And that's easier to see because you can see the arrow pointing up, right? But it grows and grows and grows. So it has a beginning. So we put that it starts at 5, but then it goes on infinitely towards the positives. Okay, so that will be with the scenario. But now, what if we use our technology? Again, we go to Desmos, we put 5 is the initial point, times 3. Then we have an exponent, which is x divided by 20. So we are going to press a to the b power. The cursor went up. And so put x divided by 20, x divided by 20. And so look at what kind of graph it creates. So the notation will be a little bit different if you use technology, okay? And so which one do you put? Ask your teacher, professor, to see which one it is. So I'm going to write with blue what I see in the technology. Okay, for X, it will just keep going and going and going towards the negative infinite. And in here the same. See how it's moving right? That means that it's also growing on X very slowly, but it moves towards the positive infinite. So with technology, this is going to be the domain. Negative infinite to positive infinite. Okay, because it never stops growing. Now for the range, let's go back. Something that I want you to notice is that it never goes past the negatives on Y. No matter how far you go, it doesn't go past that 0. Okay, it doesn't go below the 0. So, and it doesn't include the 0 because it never touches it, but it approaches it. So with technology, we're going to say that it's not including 0, but it goes towards 0. And it's also growing on Y because it goes up, 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 up with not stopping. So towards positive infinite. And again, for the infinites, you always put parentheses. In here, we're putting parentheses for the 0 because it doesn't touch 0. In here, it includes 0 right here, okay? But in here, it doesn't include the 0. It doesn't cross or even touches that 0. Okay, so in here, I'm explaining with both the technology and without technology. Ask your teacher or professor which method they would like to use. And with this, we end our search for domain and range. We would greatly appreciate it if you support our channel by giving us a thumbs up, by subscribing in here, Here you will find the link to the entire unit, and here is the next lesson. Now you're able to do 6 and have fun.